Managing a workforce is becoming more and more complex. With Zalaris People Hub, we gather all HR processes in one place. All your workforce data are fully digitized and stored safely in the cloud. Employees can have anytime, anywhere access to view their payslips and report on their time and expenses. Managers can be effective in approving their team's absences, work time and expenses in just one click. And HR has a global overview of workforce data and analytics for better decision-making and cost control. With one user interface and integration to any global HR solution, Zalaris People Hub is your complete one-stop HR platform to simplify work life for everyone. Just get in touch and we'll help you get started. Zalaris, simplify work life, achieve more.
Dāmas un kungi, esiet sveicināti SmartHR jau 2022. Gada programmā. Patiesas prieks jūs šodien visus redzēt, pareizāk redzēt jūsu klātesamību vai statistiku, ka tik daudzi no jums ir pieslēgušies. Diemžēl jāatzīst, ka lai gan bijām plānojuši arī šajā gadā sākt vai pareizāk atsākt mūsu klātienes pasākums, taču Omikronam par to ir cits viedoklis un mēs kā jau apzinīgi darba devēji un apzinīgi cilvēki esam, arī šo semināru nolēmām rīkot attālināti. Lai pēc iespējas ātrāk visi kopā tad varētu atgriezties šajās te normālajās sliedēs un atgriezties arī klātienes pasākumos. Paldies mūsu tiešāžu atbalstītājiem Zalaris un CV Online, kas palīdz nodrošināt šo te jau gandrīz sanāk 3. gadu pēc kārtas ar attālinātiem pasākumiem. Šī gada tēmas SmartHR mājaslapā jau ir publicētas, un jūs varat doties uz smarthr.lv lapu, lai paskatītos, par ko tad mēs šogad runāsim. Kā jau ierasts, viss par un ap personāla vadību un par un ap tehnoloģijām un digitalizāciju. Tāpat arī atgādinu, varbūt kāds ir palaidis garām, ja jūs iegādāsieties SmartHR abonementu 2022. Gadam, tad pagājušā gada 2021. Gada saturs īsu brīdi, vai pareizāk, ja iegādāsieties tuvākajā laikā, tad jums pienāksies arī saturs, kas ir pagājušā gadā ticis publicēts attiecīgi vēl papildus 30 stundu garumā video saturs par un ap personāla vadību, digitalizāciju un personāla vadības jomu kopumā. Nu ko, sāksim mūsu šīs dienas pasākumu, šīs dienas webināru, un šīs dienas tēma ir personāla piesaiste un atlasi. Kā jau mēs zinām, tad šis nav viegls lauciņš, un gan darba tirgus ir kļuvis daudz dinamiskāks, gan arī uzņēmumu iniciatīvas jaunu darbinieku piesaistei un atlasei ir kļuvušas daudz dinamiskāks. Tad par to visu un daudz vairāk arī šodien runāsim. Runāsim gan tādā plašākā skatījumā, proti mēģināsim noskaidrot, kādas varētu būt nākamā vai šī gada tendences personālā piesaistē un atlasē. Runāsim par tehnoloģijām, tādām kā mākslīgais intelekts personāla atlasē, runāsim par rīkiem un risinājumiem, kas var palīdzēt ikdienā to nodrošināt, un runāsim arī par jūsu, vai pareizāk mūsu pašu darbiniekiem, kas arī var iesaistīties darbinieku piesaistē, varbūt mazāk atlasē, bet kas to lai zina. Šodien aicināšu mūsu semināru atklāt CV Online vadītājam Aivim Brodiņam, kas mums mēģinās ieskicēt mazliet vairāk par prognozēm 2022. Gadam. Aivis, sveiks!
Jā, sveiks! Labdien visiem otrs ekrānam. Šodien centīšos pastāstīt par to, kas tad īstenībā noticis pagājušajā gadā un arī sniegt prognozes šim gadam, tad, ko mēs varam sagaidīt, kas notiks darba tirgū.
Vai es varu tev lūgt mazliet pārbaudīt skaņu?
Jā.
Mazs traucējums bija.
Tagad. Ok, tā.
Mazliet čārkst. Iespējams austiņas varbūt lādējas ārā.
Tagad ir ok?
Nē. Tā, Aivi, vai mēs varam paaicināt, nomainīt ierīci, uztver skaņu tavā pusē?
Jā, es saku nomainīju, kā ir. Joprojām nav, jā?
Joprojām, galam. Tas nekas, 2022. gads arī nāk ar savu devumu, un vēl joprojām tehnoloģijas, lai cik arī attīstīts tās būtu, vienmēr ir uz jautājumu zīmes. Mazu brīdi uzgaidīsim, kamēr Aivis atjauno savus sakarus ar mums, un turpinājumā cerams ar jau labāku skaņas kvalitāti. Aivis, sveiks atpakaļ!
Jā, sveiks, kā ir?
Ideāli. Okay. Nododa virtuālo skatuvi tavās rokās.
Jā, esam tikuši galā ar visām tehniskajām nepilnībām. Jā, tad pirms tam tā kā nedzirdējāt, tad, kā jau Juris arī pieteica, šodien pastāstīšu par darba tirgus tendencēm un par šī gada prognozēm. Tā, tūlīt pievienosim prezentāciju. Jā. Jā, tātad, kas tad ir noticis pagājušajā gadā īsumā un par šī gada aktualitātēm? 21. gads ir tikko pagājis, un es domāju, ka tā pirmā lieta, kur piekritīsiet, ka pagājušais gads ir bijis tomēr kopumā krietni labāks nekā cerēts. Daudziem biznesiem tas ir bijis atkopšanās gads, citiem biznesiem tas ir bijis jauna rekorda un ļoti straujas izaugsmes gads, bet kopumā es domāju, ka šis gads ir bijis ļoti labs uzņēmēju darbībai. Protams, ir nozares, kurās ir bijuši ierobežojumi, un tas gads varbūt tās nav bijis tik labs, bet kopumā, ja mēs skatāmies, tad tā izaugsme ir bijusi diezgan strauja. Un tas arī ir atstājis iespēju uz darba tirgu un veicinājis gan straujāku nodarbinātību, gan lielāku dinamiku darba tirgu. Un pēc CV online novērojumiem pagājušais gads ir bijis ar rekordu augstu aktivitāti no jums, no darba devēja puses, un tas principā arī ir tas rezultāts tam, ka pagājušais gads viņš ir bijis krietni labāks par 20. gadu, kaut kādā mērā uzņēmumi ir centušies atgūt to zaudēto, kas bija 20. gadā, un tā tad ir izcēluši ar ļoti augstu aktivitāti tieši saistībā par darbinieku meklēšanu. Viens no rādītājiem, kas raksturo šo manu apgalvojumu, ir aktīvo darba devēju skaits. CV online portālā pagājušā gadā darba devēju skaits pieauga par aptuveni 40%, kas ir ļoti augsts rādītājs. Salīdzinot ar 19. gadu, kas ir bijis tāds pēdējais normālais gads, arī šis pieaugums ir pietiekoši liels, 20%, bet kopumā šī darba devēju aktivitāte un tas, cik daudz ir bijuši reklāmu devēji, tas ir vēsturiski augstākais, nekad nav bijis tik augsts īpatsvars. Tādējādi arī šī konkurence par labākajiem talantiem viņi ir bijusi attiecīgi lielāka. Otra lieta, kas raksturo aktivitāti, ir darba sludinājumu skaits. Tas arī ir ļoti būtiski pieaudzis pagājušajā gadā, 2 reizes straujāk nekā darba devēju skaits, pieaudzis par 80%. Šāds pieaugums pēdējo reizi bija 2011. gadā, kas bija tāds pirmais atkopšanās gads pēc finanšu ekonomikas krīzes. Pagājušajā gadā arī mēs varējām vērot līdzīgi tiešām ļoti strauju izaugsmi, un pret 19. gadu plus 41%. Tātad pagājušajā gadā, principā gada sākumā jau tika sasniegts šis apjoms līdzīgs, kāds viņš bija pirms pandēmijas, un tātad katrs nākamais mēnesis jau bija ar pieauguma zīmi. Tas nozīmē to, ka ļoti milzīgs vakanču apjoms, un līdz ar to darba ņēmējiem ļoti plašas iespējas, kur izvēlēties, kur strādāt, un darba devējiem tas attiecīgi nozīmē vēl lielākus izaicinājumus tieši personāla atlasē. Lielākais pieprasījums pēc darba spēka. Par šo arī jau ir daudz stāstīts, bet tas kopsavilkums par pagājušo gadu, ka IT kategorija ir nostabilizējusies, pārliecinoši tādā pirmā pozīcijā. Pēdējā pusotra gada laikā tātad ir šīs izmaiņas notikušas, pirms tam tā bija pārdošana, šobrīd tā ir informācija tehnoloģija joma, vairāk kā 10%, un tad jau sako pārējās tradicionālās jomas, pārdošana, tirzniecība, administrēšana, pakalpojumi, tehniskās zinātnes, finanses grāmatvedība, vadība un tā tālāk. Arī HR vakances ir iekļuvušas 15. Un, kā jau minēju, pieaugums ir bijis par 80% pagājušajā gadā vakancēm, taču 3 jomās pārdošana, tirdzniecība, pakalpojumi šis pieauguma temps bijis vēl straujāks. Tās klasiski ir kategorijas, kuras ir vispiesātinātākās ar vakancēm, ir visvairāk piedāvājumi, tāpēc arī šīs jomas viņas ir pavilkušas uz augšu, varbūt citas jomas, kur ir mazāks pieaugums, bet tad šajās 3 jomās šis apjoms ir gandrīz dubultojies gada laikā. Un būtībā tas, ko šeit mēs varam redzēt IT joma, jā, tur šis pieaugums ir salīdzinoši piezemētāks, bet kopumā var teikt, jā, ka tas cipariski pēc absolūtiem cipariem tāpat ir vairāk tūkstoši vairāk nekā tas bija 20. gadā. Tas nozīmē to, ka darbspēka pieejamība ir šobrīd, es teiktu, ļoti, ļoti slikta, viennozīmīgi sliktāk nekā 20. gadā, un par to, protams, runā aizvien vairāk un vairāk, līdz ar to tas viennozīmīgi varētu būt šobrīd kā tāds bremzējošais faktors daudzos gadījumos uzņēmumiem, lai viņi varētu sasniegt savus mērķus. Par šo arī liecina pieteikumu skaits vakancēm. Būtībā, 20. gadā darba devēji varēja izbaudīt tādu unikālu brīdi, kad šis pieteikumu skaits bija uzlicis ļoti augstu. Būtībā 3 reizes vairāk nekā varbūt ir pierasts, un tad jau kopš pagājušā gada sākuma viņš pamazām sāka pakāpeniski samazināties. Tur, protams, lielā mērā arī tas viss ir saistīts ar vakanču skaita pieaugumu, jo vakanču skaits ļoti strauji pieauga, tāpat laikā darba tirgū īsti nav nākuši klāt jauni darba meklētāji. Kā mēs zinām, ir tikai Latvijā ir viena no sliktākajām situācijām tieši saistībā par demogrāfisko situāciju. Katru gadu ir vairāk kā -20 000 cilvēku mazāk darba tirgū, līdz ar to tas viss pasākumu komplekss plus cilvēki arī ir pēc mūsu aptaujām un pēc dažādām citām izpētēm cilvēki ir šobrīd jābūt nedaudz piesardzīgāk meklēt jaunus darba piedāvājumus, un šis aktīvo darba ņēmēju skaits, meklētāju skaits, viņš ir viennozīmīgs sarucis, un līdz ar to tas arī atspoguļojas pieteikumos. Tas viss, protams, ir veicinājis to, ka, kā jau arī esat tam sekojuši līdzi, un arī paši savos uzņēmumos to piedzīvojuši, ļoti strauji ir audzis arī atalgojums. Tur ir vairāk iemesli. Protams, šis spiediens no darba ņēmējiem ir pieaudzis, jo ir vairāk vakances, un lai šos cilvēkus noturētu, tad darba devēji spiesti celt šo atalgojumu. Ir, protams, dažādi arī citi apstākļi, kas ir bijuši, pieņemsim, visstraujākais atalgojums ir medicīnas jomā, bet tur ir, tas viss ir saistīts ar pandēmiju, ir dažādas piemaksas bijuši un tam līdzīgi, bet citās jomās arī mēs redzam pietiekoši strauju pieaugumu, un tātad, 8 jomas nozars ir tās, kurās šis vidējais atalgojums ir augstāks nekā vidēji valstī. Tad šobrīd vidēji valstī pēc oficiālās statistikas ir ap 1300 eiro bruto. Vēl viena lieta, tendence, kas tāda ļoti aktuāla pēdējos 2 gados, tāda darba režīms, jeb tāda par attālināto darbu runājot. Būtībā šis attālināto darba strādājošo ņēmēju īpatsvars, viņš ir ļoti mainīgs. Viņš ir, protams, atkarīgs no tā, cik liela ir ierobežojumi tajā brīdī. Un kopumā mēs varam redzēt, ka līdz ko ir kāds lockdowns, protams, ir krietni lielāks šis strādājošo īpatsvars, kas strādā attālināti. Un tā viena lieta tāda, ka, pieņemsim, mēs skatāmies 3. ceturksni, kad šie ierobežojumi varbūt ir salīdzinoši mazāki bijuši, tad šis īpatsvars tomēr pieaug. Tas nozīmē to, ka cilvēki aizvien vairāk šo prasa, pat ja varbūt nav teiksim, tādas norādes no valsts puses vai no darba devēja puses. Un tas, principā, arī liecina to, ka ļoti daudz ir izvēlējuši šo hibrīda strādāšanas modeli, un šobrīd arī uzņēmumi ļoti daudz piekop šo hibrīdu modeli, kad dažas dienas nedēļā no biroja un pārējā laikā no mājām. Noteikti šī tendence viņa arī turpmāk saglabāsies tieši tāda pati, beidzoties mazinoties pandēmijas aktīvajā fāzē. Jā, tas par 21. gadu. 22. gads ir sācies, jau mēnesis ir jau gandrīz pagājis, un pavisam noteikti šis gads arī būs ļoti dinamisks. Un, lai prognozētu, kāds ir šis, kāds būs šis gads, mēs katru gadu veicam aptauju starp uzņēmējiem, starp darba devējiem, lai saprastu, kāda ir šī vidējā temperatūra, kāds ir šis darba devēja noskaņojums, ar mērķi apkopot darba devēja plānus saistībā par nodarbinātību un tad arī par atalgojumu izmaiņām un citiem personāla vadības jautājumiem. Aptauja tikko noslēdzās šonedēļ, vairāk kā 110 uzņēmumu piedalījās, un tad padalīšos ar galvenajiem secinājumiem un rezultātiem, pēc kā tad arī varētu prognozēt, kāds izvērtīsies šis gads. Viens no centrālajiem jautājumiem parasti aptaujā ir par darbinieku skaita izmaiņām, un šeit ir pēdējo 6 gadu aptauju rezultāti, kur varam redzēt, ka pēdējos 2 gados darba devēji ir bijuši salīdzinoši piesardzīgi, tikai 3. daļa ir bijuši tādi, kas noteikti apgalvojuši, ka meklēs darbiniekus. Protams, 21. gadā tā situācija ir nedaudz savādāka. Gada sākumā varbūt tās, bija vēl diezgan saspringta situācija, bija ļoti liela ierobežojuma, tā situācija mainījās, kā jau stāstīju, gads izvērtās ļoti dinamisks, bet kopumā jā, tā tad darba devēji ir bijuši piesardzīgi pēdējos 2 gados. Kas tad notiks šajā gadā? Šajā gadā mēs redzam to, ka vairāk kā puse no uzņēmumiem ir optimistiski noskaņoti, un tad šis rādītājs ir, es teiktu, rekordliels pēdējos gados, un liecina par to, ka šajā gadā pavisam noteikti uzņēmumi ļoti lielā apjomā meklēs darbiniekus. Visticamāk, ka šis vakanču skaits turpinās pieaugt, protams, varbūt netik strauji, jo arī pagājušajā gadā tika sasniegts ļoti liels apjoms, bet noteikti būs ļoti daudz darba piedāvājumu, uzņēmumi aktīvi meklēs darbiniekus, un šis būs dinamisks un aktīvs gads. Diezgan, protams, 5. daļa vēl nav izlēmuši, vai šobrīd meklē darbiniekus, kas ir normāli, un tā tas ir katru gadu. Un tā tad, protams, jā, ir arī daļa tādu uzņēmumu, kas plāno gan pieņemt, gan atlaist, iespējams plāno attiecīgi, zinām, rotāciju. Tikai 2% plāno atlaist. Būtībā šeit mēs varam tiešām runāt kopumā, ka, ja mēs ņemam šo spidometru, šo barometru, tad noteikti šis stabiņš ir vairāk uz zaļo pusi attiecībā par šo gadu. Un tā tad jā, tiek sagaidīts vakanču pieaugums. Attiecībā par nozarēm, pirmajā vietā visaktīvāk darbinieks meklēs apstrādes rūpniecībā, kas ir rezultāts tam, ka pieaug eksporta apjomi, pieprasījums arī citās valstīs. Protams, arī iekšējais patēriņš palielinās, tas arī dzen uz augšu tirdzniecības nozari, līdz ar to tur būs pieprasījums pēc darbiniekiem. Protams, klasiski informācija un komunikācijas pakalpojumi, transports uzglabāšana, pārsteidzoši arī māksla, izklaide, atpūta ļoti augsti ierindojusies. Ja? Un es domāju, ka arī kopumā vēl citas nozares, ēdināšana, dažādi veidi citi pakalpojumi, ja, kuriem joprojām ir šie ierobežojumi, kur šīs nozares vēl nav atkopušās atšķirībā no citām nozarēm, kur noteikti mēs sagaidām, ka būs ļoti straujuš darbinieku tātad, meklēšanas aktivitātes. Iemesli šeit gribētu atzīmēt to, ka aizvien vairāk uzņēmumi darbinieku šogad meklēs tieši saistībā ar uzņēmuma darbības paplašināšanos, darba apjomu pieaugumu. Prognozē, protams, arī uzņēmumu nedaudz vairāk šo mainību, kas ir likumsakarīgi, pieaugot vispār kopumā vakanču iespējām darba tirgū. Savukārt tie uzņēmumi, kas darbiniekus, šo darbinieku skaitu neplāno mainīt, tad tur jāatzīmē tas, ka tomēr viens no galvenajiem iemesliem ir tas, ka tiks izmantota esošais darbspēka resurss krietni efektīvāk, ja, kas arī ir, es domāju, kopumā laba zīme, jo uzņēmumi tomēr skatās, lai šī produktivitāte ir pietiekoši augsta. Par darbspēku pieejamību jau minēju, principā darba devēja vērtējumā situācija gada laikā ir tiešām būtiski pasliktinājusies. Gandrīz 70% no uzņēmumiem min to, ka darbinieku atrašana ir kļuvusi vēl sarežģītāka un izaicinošāka. Un tā kā šajā gadā tā situācija viņa neuzlabosies, tieši tāpat bezdarbs turpinās samazināties un vakanšu skaits pieaugt, un visi apstākļi spēlēs par labu tam, lai tomēr šī darba spēka pieejamība nebūtu tā pozitīvākā. Un Tāpēc sagaidāms, ka gads būs pietiekoši izaicinošs. Par atalgojumu izmaiņām, tad, kā jau minēju, rādīja pagājušā gadā ir bijis ļoti strauji atalgojuma pieaugums, vairāk kā 10% pieaugums, principā lielāks vai mazāks visās biznesa nozarēs. Šajā gadā darba devēji, tad vēl principā 2 reizes vairāk darba devēju plāno palielināt atalgojumu saviem darbiniekiem, vairāk kā 60%. Tas nozīmē to, ka noteikti lielākajā daļā uzņēmumu un arī visticamāk vairums no darba ņēmējiem arī sajutīs to, ka ir šis algu pieaugums un ir izmaiņas atalgojumā. Attiecībā par to, kas tieši mainīsies un par cik, tā labā zīme ir tā, ka darba devēji vairāk skatās šobrīd tieši fiksēto izmaksu palielināšanas jomā, respektīvi ir gatavi palielināt vēl vairāk šo pamatalgu. Protams, arī atalgojuma mainīgā daļa, bet tātad primāri šis pieaugums nāks no pamatalgas pieauguma. Un tātad trešā daļa uzņēmumu plāno, ka atalgojums pieaugs 5 līdz 6% apmērā, bet piektā daļa plāno 9 līdz 10% apmērā. Tā kā, principā, tas pieaugums viņš varētu būt iespējams var pat arī sasniegt 2-ciparu skaitli visas valsts mērogā, bet tikpat labi viņš varētu arī būt 8 līdz 9% robežās. Jebkurā gadījumā straujāks nekā varbūt mēs esam pieraduši pirms pandēmijas periodā redzēt. Šie atalgojuma pieauguma iemesli, viņi ir klasiski tie paši, kas arī ir bijuši līdz šim, bet vēl vairāk noteikti uzņēmumi to plāno darīt, lai noturētu savus esošos darbiniekus, jo tas ir, protams, centrālais galvenais resurss un tas ir uzņēmumu galvenais iemesls, lai tātad palielinātu atalgojumu. Parādās arī tāda lieta kā inflācijas pieaugums, neliela daļa to ir atzīmējuši, bet principā šeit arī ir jāatcerās, ja atalgojums pieaug darbiniekiem par 4 līdz 5%, tad principā tas reālais atalgojums darbiniekam iespējams beigās paliek tieši tāds pats, jo inflācija ir ļoti strauja, tāpēc te ir arī jāizvērtē dažādi faktori, protams, kāda ir šī atalgojuma bāze, bet tātad inflācija tas noteikti arī varētu būt viens no iemesliem, kāpēc būtu jāpārskata atalgojums. Par papildus labumiem, ja pagājušajā gadā darba devēji varbūt, bija salīdzinoši tad piesardzīgāki palielināt šo papildus labumu grozu, tad šajā gadā darba devēji raugās uz to, lai darbiniekiem tātad tiktu piedāvāti vēl kaut kādi, vēl vairāk šie papildus labumi, arī attiecīgi, lai viņus motivētu strādāt. Trešā daļa arī min, ka paliks esošais labumu grozs, bet kopumā šī situācija izskatās attiecīgi pozitīvāka. Un visbeidzot, tā pēdējā lieta saistībā par tendencēm, kas tad ir vēl šīs tendences, ko darba devēji uzsver. Pavisam noteikti pats svarīgākā lieta, kas ir personāla vadītāju dienas kārtībā, tā ir darbinieku labūtība, darbinieku pieredze, attiecīgi šo jomu uzlabošanu. Vairāk kā tāda trešā daļa no uzņēmumiem min to, ka tā ir numur 1 prioritāte. Un, kā mēs zinām, darbinieku labūtība, tas ir stāsts par to, kā darbinieks jūtās. Te ir, protams, vairākas dimensijas, psihoemocionālā, kas ietver darbinieka šo stresa līmeni, darbinieku atpūtu, elastību, attiecībā par darba laiku, attīstības iespējas. Tad šī sociālā dimensija, tās ir attiecības ar kolēģiem, ar vadību, atgriezniskā saite, atbalsts, piederības sajūta un tā tālāk. Noteikti šis finansiālais, materiālā dimensija, tad attiecīgi runa par atalgojumu un šiem papildus labumiem. Un tad ir attiecīgi šīs fiziskās dimensijas, fiziskā vides, attiecīgi ergonomiska darba vide, komforts, siltums un tā tālāk. Un tad visbeidzot šī fiziskā veselības dimensija, fiziskās aktivitātes, uzturs, miegs, ārstēšana un tā tālāk. Tā kā šī darbinieku labūtība, tas viennozīmīgi ir ļoti, ļoti būtiski un īpaši šī darbinieku psihoemocionālā puse šobrīd šajos apstākļos. Darbinieku kvalifikācijas celšana un pārkvalifikācija ir kā otra galvenā prioritāte. Un tātad, tur, kā mēs zinām, straujā tehnoloģija laikmetā tas attiecīgi prasa uzņēmumiem vēl aktīvāk, teiksim tā, uzlabot savu darbinieku prasmes. Arī daudziem darbiniekiem tas nozīmē, ka ir nepieciešams pārkvalificēties. Digitalizācija, tehnoloģijas, tas ir nemitīgs process, jo uzņēmumi vēlās automatizēt procesus un pieņemt lēmumus, kas ir balstīti uz datiem. Arī, protams, celt produktivitāti. Tā kā šis arī likumsakarīgi ir viens no būtiskākajiem. Darbdevēja tēla veicināšana šeit tas ir rezultāts tam, ka tomēr šī darba spēka pieejamība pasliktinās. Uzņēmējiem ir jādomā par to, kā viņi izskatās potenciālo darba ņēmēju acīs. Protams, ir jāstrādā arī ar šo iekšējo tēlu. Šeit varbūt izmantojot arī brīdi visus darba devējus, personāla vadītājus, aicinu arī piedalīties ikgadējā top darba devējas aptaujā, kas šobrīd ir aktīva. Tātad topdarbdevējs.lv varat nobalsot, varat aicināt savus darbiniekus balsot par jums. Un šis būtībā ir arī kā viens no veidiem, kā jūs varat novērtēt savas pozīcijas darba tirgū un veicināt savu darba devēju tēlu. Attālinātā darbinieku vadība arī ir būtiska, bet ņemot vērā to, ka vairāk varētu būt šis hibrīda darba modelis, tad šis iespējams nav šobrīd tik svarīgs moments, kā tas bija agrāk. Un visbeidzot, tad noslēdzot savu prezentāciju, gribu uzsvērt, ka kvalificēts un prasmīgs darbspēks, protams, ir ikvienas organizācijas izaugsmes pamatā. Labi darbinieki šobrīd ir zelta vērti. Atsevišķās profesijās darbinieki arī ir kā karaļi, bet tas, ko es gribu novēlēt visiem un aicināt, tiešām veidot pārdomātu un gudru personāla vadības politiku, ņemot vērā šīs aktuālās darba tirgus tendences. Un domājot kā šahā, vairākus gājienus uz priekšu, un tas jums noteikti palīdzēs darbā ar talantu noturēšanu un piesaisti. Paldies par uzmanību, lai jums veicās, tad jau uz tikšanos. Juri, mēs tev nedzirdam.
Vai tagad labāk var dzirdēt?
Jā.
Paldies, Aivi. Paldies. Jā, katrā gadījumā tas, ko tu ieskicēji, izskatās pēc ļoti, ļoti saspringta gada. Ne tikai personāla vadībā, bet uzņēmējdarbībā kopumā un ikvienā darba vietā, kur ir kaut vairāk par vienu darbinieku, šis jau izklausās pēc izaicinoša perioda. Mums ir daži jautājumi, tāpat es arī aicinu uzdot auditorijai jautājumus ekrāna augšējā stūrī sadaļā diskusijas, kur jūs varat pievienot savus jautājumus, bet viens, kas jau ir pievienots, bija, protams, par praktiskām lietām. Daudz stāstīja par to, ka tiek palielināts gan algas šajā gadā plānotas palielināt, gan arī attiecīgi darbinieku piesaisti kļūst grūtāk, jo darba meklētāju kopumā ir mazāk, viņiem ir lielāka iespēja izvēlēties. Vai tu varētu ieskicēt, ko praktiski tas nozīmē darbinieku atlases speciālista ikdienā? Kas viņu šogad sagaida?
Pirmkārt jau tas, ka noteikti ir jārēķinās, ka šis personāla atlases process viņš var reizēm būt ilgāks. Noteikti ir jāizmanto iespēja, ja ir labs kandidāts, tad noteikti ir jārēģē uzreiz. Nav jāgaida kaut kādas dienas vai nedēļas, kad beigsies konkurss. Tātad uzreiz ir kandidāts atbilstoši, uzreiz zvanam, sazinamies un ja ir labs, tad ņemam darbā. Noteikti jāsaprot tas, ka ļoti liels fokus ir uz šo arī kandidātu pieredzi, lai šis process viņš ir ātrs, caurspīdīgs, lai tad, kad ir veikts šīs intervijas, lai tomēr šim cilvēkam šis informācija par tālākiem soļiem viņa ir operatīvi tiek iedota, jo noteikti šim cilvēkam varētu būt arī citi darba piedāvājumi, tā kā arī ir jābūt ļoti operatīviem un es teiktu arī tādiem uz agile vērstiem, nemitīgi jāpielāgojās. Protams, jā, ir teiksim, attiecībā par atalgojumu. Cilvēki skatās šos atalgojumus sludinājumos. Vienkārši jāskatās līdzi, lai šis atalgojums viņš ir konkurētspējīgs pret pārējiem nozares uzņēmumiem. Protams, jādomā par tev pašu kaut kādām radošām pieejām, par kaut kādām kampaņām, tieši darbdevēja tēla veicināšanā. Visticamāk, ka var rēķināties, ka līdzīgi kā līdz šim, varētu būt arī šis virtuālais onboardings, kā viena no tendencēm, ņemot vērā, ka varbūt kaut kāda ierobežojuma, ka nevar tikties klātienē. Tā kā kopumā, es teiktu, tās būtu tās lietas, ar ko jārēķinās.
Un vēl viens jautājums, šis, manuprāt, ir ekonomiski pamatots jautājums, vai šajā gadījumā darbinieku piesaistes izmaksas, protams, palielinās tāpēc, ka ir ilgāks termiņš līdz darbinieku pieņemšanai, bet vai arī reklāmas un darbinieku sludinājumu izmaksas līdz ar to neplāno augt līdz ar inflāciju un tādā veidā vēl vairāk akcelerējot šo te jauna darbinieka piesaistes dārdzību?
Neapšaubām, viss jau ir tāds viss ir vienā ķēdē, jo loģiski arī mums kā platformai mums sadārdzināts izmaksas, lai mēs varētu piesaistīt šos aktīvos lietotājus, un līdz ar to, protams, šīs izmaksas par reklāmu, viņas palielinās. Tas ir tā kā saistīts, protams, šeit ir runa par tiešām, inflācijas apmēram, bet būtībā, tas noteikti, ir sagaidāms.
Aivi, Klau, pavisam godīgs jautājums. Izmantojot iespēju, ka tu esi tomēr ar mums šodien, tu jau diezgan daudz ieskicēji mūsu šo te nākamo gadu. Šobrīd mūs ļoti satrauc, protams, gan samazinātais darbinieku skaits vispār, talantu skaits tirgū, gan, protams, pieaugušās izmaksas. Taču visvairāk ir satraukti mazie vidēji uzņēmēji, kas iespējams nevar izkonkurēt lielo uzņēmēju budžetus, gan mārketinga, gan piesaistes kampaņām. Varbūt tu vari iedot savu skatījumu uz šo te situāciju, kā varbūt mazie vidēji uzņēmumi, kas tomēr Latvijā ir liels vairākums, varētu pielāgoties šai situācijai.
Es domāju, ka viena no lietām, kas ir priekšrocība mazajiem vidējiem uzņēmumam, ir lielāka elastība, mazāka birokrātija. Un tas, ko es esmu novērojis, ka tādi mazie vidēji uzņēmumi ir krietni atvērtāki, dot iespēju darbiniekiem strādāt attālināt, respektīvi, iespējams, šis elastīgais darba modelis varētu būt kā viena no priekšrocībām. Iespējams, varbūt tās samazināts darba stundu skaits, saglabājot to pašu atalgojumu. Katrā ziņā ne visiem darbiņēmējiem motivē strādāt lielos uzņēmumos. Daudziem tieši patīk, varbūt, ka tu esi, teiksim, daļa no tāda mazāka kolektīva, un iespējams ir katram pašam jāizvērtē, kas ir šis employer value proposition, un viena no lietām noteikti varētu būt šī lielāka elastība, kad ātrāk lēmumu pieņemšana. Un kā mēs zinām, atalgojums nevienmēr ir tas galvenais motivators, kāpēc cilvēks izvēlās mainīt darbu. Protams, atkarīgs no profesijas, amatu grupas un tā tālāk, bet iespējams kaut kādi citi momenti, kur mazais uzņēmums var ļoti labi konkurēt ar lieliem uzņēmumiem. Nevienmēr jābūt lielākai algai.
Super. Paldies tev, Aivi. Es tev šodien vairāk neaizkavēšu, teikšu vēlreiz paldies par izsmeļošo prezentāciju un novēlēšu tev, lai šis gads bagāts ar izturību un, kā saka, lai mēs vienmēr zinām, pie kā vērsties, ja ir jautājumi par darbinieku atlasi. Paldies, Aivi, lai veiksmīga diena.
Paldies, veiksmīgi. Tā.
Dārgie skatītāji, 2022. gads ir nemazāk izaicinājumiem pilns kā 2021. gads, un arī mūsu nākamajam spīkerim ir tehnisks problēmas pievienoties, tāpēc mēs mazliet palaidīsim reklāmas pauzes 2 minūtēm un tikmēr mēģināsim atrisināt šī gada pirmās mazķibeles. Tāpēc tiekamies pēc dažām minūtēm.
Managing a workforce is becoming more and more complex. With Zalaris People Hub, we gather all HR processes in one place. All your workforce data are fully digitized and stored safely in the cloud. Employees can have anytime, anywhere access to view their payslips and report on their time and expenses. Managers can be effective in approving their team's absences, work time, and expenses in just one click. And HR has a global overview of workforce data and analytics for better decision-making and cost control. With one user interface and integration to any global HR solution, Zalaris People Hub is your complete one-stop HR platform to simplify work life for everyone. Just get in touch and we'll help you get started. Zalaris, simplify work life, achieve more.
Un esam atpakaļ mūsu tiešajā ēterā. Man ir prieks, ka visas tehniskās mazķibeles var atrisināt pāris minūšu laikā moderno tehnoloģiju palīdzībā. Lūk, šodien runājam par darbinieku piesaisti un darbinieku atlasi. Nu pat dzirdējām CV online vadītāju Aivu Brodiņu izklāstu par to, kāds varētu būt 2022. gads. Un tajā, kā jau minēts, bija sava vieta arī digitālajām tehnoloģijām. Ne tikai atlasē, bet arī personāla vadībā kopumā. Nu, par šo te digitālo tēmu arī turpināšu mūsu šīs dienas semināru, webināru šajā gadījumā, un kā nākamo aicināšu pastāstīt mazliet vairāk Transformify CEO Lili Stajano. Un, lai to izdarītu, pāriešu uz angļu valodu. Let me switch to English. As you already know, this event will be part in Latvian, part in English, as we usually do. So today's guest number 2 is Lili Stajano, a CEO of Transformify, who will let us know a bit more about the possibilities of artificial intelligence in the process of recruitment. Hi, Lili, do you hear me?
Hi, many thanks for inviting me to this webinar. And I'll be more than happy to talk today about AI in recruitment, what the ethical considerations there are, and why it is more and more regulated, and of course, how it can help recruiters to make informed hiring decisions.
Excellent. So the stage is yours. Please feel free to share the presentation and let us know a bit more about artificial intelligence.
Fantastic. I would say that in recent years, there have been many discussions around the usage of AI in recruitment. You have probably came across some articles talking about how Amazon was using machine learning to pre-screen candidates. And it's a very interesting case study because the algorithm eventually trained itself to filter out women. It was using natural language processing, and because the data that was gathered over 10 years was mostly CVs, the resumes of engineers who applied for technical roles, those resumes happened to be mostly of male candidates. This was not what the team of Amazon intended as a result, but it happened. And that's why now machine learning is regulated in the European Union. It's regulated also in the US. I would see similar regulation being imposed across the globe. There is a reason for that. We need to be very careful not to filter out candidates. Everyone needs to be put at the same level when they apply for jobs. Having said so, this is how the team at Transformify approached the automation of hiring decisions. To me, the right way is to help recruiters just like you to make informed hiring decisions. But those decisions shall never be made on behalf of you. You'd rather need information you could trust. So what we take into account are lots of data points gathered over the last 6 years of diverse candidates. On top of that, we learn from data about your company. Out of 300 candidates on average that apply for certain role, we check which candidates you have put on your shortlist. Usually you would put about 10 candidates on your shortlist, and not all of them will make it till the end of the hiring process. Depending on how many open roles you have, you may be extending 1 to 2 job offers for that role. We need to understand who these candidates are. What do they have in common? In order to help you next time you're hiring, to go through the list of candidates and put on your shortlist those candidates that are likely to be successful. What else you have there are the desired salaries of the candidates. It's not mandatory for them to provide you with that information. However, we strongly advise them to do so. The reason is simple. It saves time for everyone involved in the hiring process. If, for example, your budget is 2 times less than what the candidate expects to be paid, it's not worth anyone's time. Even if you somehow manage to motivate the candidate to accept a job offer which is 2 times below their salary expectations, they're unlikely to stay with you. The very first time someone else offers them a much higher salary, they would shift careers, they would go to someone else. So it's something everyone needs to know from the beginning. We also give you information about the median pay rate worldwide. Why? These days, everyone is hiring across the globe. You have access to a global talent pool. You can hire not just in Latvia where you are. You can hire in Estonia, you can hire in Portugal, you can hire in Spain, or even in Brazil. Why not? If this is the right candidate. That's why it's important to know what the median, not the average. It's totally different. What the median pay rate is for that skill set, for that role globally. Check your budget. And eventually it may happen that because of your budget, you are restricted to certain geographies. Your budget is adequate to the levels in certain countries, but globally it could be below the median pay rate. The next part, which is really of interest to all recruiters, are those candidates that are applying at random and completely wasting your time. We have all came across such candidates. You have 20 open roles and they vary a lot. You have anything from careers to sales representatives to PHP engineers to QAs. And there are those candidates that apply for all these jobs and they don't have the skills for any, but they keep applying. First of all, you want to understand if a candidate has ever applied for any role within your company. So you see that immediately this candidate here applied for other roles. And you know, when you visit their profile, you know which roles this candidate applied for. If this candidate was ever part of your hiring process, they navigated through the interviews, you know what the comments of the hiring team were back then. You have all that historical information. And of course, it's used by predictive analytics to predict the success rate of this candidate for this current role. Then there are some candidates that are trying to mislead you on purpose. Here is a candidate who understands that the chances of being put on shortlist are higher if they plug in some of the competencies that role requires. At least they have taken their time to read the job description, because there are candidates who don't do that either. And you see the skills, 3 out of all these skills make sense. Python and machine learning go hand in hand. This is a programming language that's used to develop machine learning algorithms. So it makes sense. But this candidate is also pretending to have excellent marketing skills, Google AdWords and Google AdSense skills. So is he an engineer or a marketer? Or she maybe. And how this candidate fits into your criteria. Those candidates definitely will be flagged by our predictive analytics. Their score will be also altered based on the fact that they're misleading you on purpose. And speaking of misleading you on purpose, here we have a real case. This is a candidate who applied for a content writing role with Transformify. What you see there is something very common. Many candidates, knowing how natural language processing works, simply copy-paste part of the job description into their resume, making sure that those keywords you are using in the job description appear on their resume, and they believe that their chances of being filtered out go down if it's copy-pasted. However, it's super misleading because they don't have the relevant experience. They just copy-pasted your job description. This candidate here, luckily for us, was not creative enough because he copy-pasted and did not care to read that we are mentioning our blog in the job description. What he pretends now is that since 2016, he was writing copy for our HR blog. If you go down, you see Panorama blog. I bet that this candidate applied for a role with Panorama in the past, copy-pasted that line from their job description, and didn't take care to even delete it when applying for a role with Transformify. It's a common practice. Many candidates do that. They copy-paste parts of the job description, and that's why you don't want to waste your time. Our predictive analytics algorithm will definitely flag such candidates and make sure that you're informed that their predicted success rate is likely to be lower, but it will never filter them out. It's always your decision. For some reason, if it is, let's say, a startup, people may like that creativity. They may like that desire to get the job. Doesn't matter if you're really good for it now, but you're ready to learn, you're ready to develop. Some organizations may actually go for such candidates. We don't filter them out. You need to know and to be able to identify them. Speaking of candidates, there is one side that is usually neglected, and this is the quality of candidates that receive a job offer. This is the velocity of your hiring team. Many organizations measure the efficiency of their hiring team based on KPIs like time to fill. How many days does it take for a recruiter to fill in a role? However, unless you have data and it is in the same place, in the same database, it's very hard to measure the quality of those candidates. What we do is we measure how many of those candidates that receive a job offer stay with the organization, how many of them have a high score going forward, how many of them are stars. That's how you can understand if certain recruiters are super quick to fill in a role, but going forward, those candidates don't stay. Even more, those candidates don't pass through the probation period. The very same is applicable for recruiters who are super slow, but the quality of candidates they bring in is very, very high. You need to find a balance between timeliness and quality. Otherwise, again, being very, very slow to fill in roles, it's a problem for the organization. You have many roles that are currently not filled in, and your productivity suffers because of that. And eventually, the worst case scenario, is the case when you have someone who is very slow and the quality of the candidates that have been brought in is low. And you need to be able to measure all this. Again, reports and data stored in the same database allow you to do so. Speaking of candidates, there is another aspect that is not easy to address without technology, and this is the pay rate tolerance. Pay rate tolerance stands for your negotiation power. Usually, a candidate would ask for a salary higher than the salary they're ready to accept. It's a negotiation process, people bargain. And you need to know what your tolerance is. And this varies from one organization to another. Let's say, based on the data that has been gathered over years, it's obvious that for certain roles, your tolerance level is 10%. The candidates are likely to accept a job offer which is 10% below their initial salary expectations, and after accepting that job offer, they will stay motivated within your organization in the long run. Please excuse me. On the other hand, for other roles, your tolerance level could be 25%. These are usually the sales roles, the marketing roles. People are asking for much more, but they eventually settle for less. It varies from organization to organization as well. Sometimes the big name, the big brand of an organization is enough for a candidate to trade off their salary expectations for their future career growth. But you need to understand if this is your case. There is no one size that fits them all. It varies even between different roles within the same organization. The more data you have, the more informed you are, and the more precise your hiring decisions are. I would say the very last part of it is to identify latent conflicts on your team. And this is especially valid when people work from home or remotely. What does latent conflict stands for? These are conflicts that still have not manifested themselves, but you need to know that you have all prerequisites to face a huge conflict going forward. How can you understand that? If you use scorecards and assessments, and I'm sure that most organizations here have regular assessments, being them annual, quarterly, or semi-annually, then you have both sides, the manager and the employee, measuring the performance of the employee. If the score given by the manager is, let's say, 2 versus a score of 5 out of 5, the employee gives themselves, obviously, there is a gap, and that gap identifies a potential conflict. Some of our customers have identified conflicts around managers who are putting down candidates that are very ambitious and potentially will run for the manager's role. That's why they're downgraded intentionally. Another conflict situation may arise when the manager has not clearly communicated the expectations, the deliverables, how those deliverables are to be measured. So eventually, there is no way for the employee to deliver to those expectations because they don't understand what the expectations are. They don't understand how their work is to be measured. This is something very easy to remedy. If it is just communication that is leading to such results, it's easy. It's not a real conflict. It's rather prerequisite for a conflict going forward. Another such situation is when you have a manager and an employee that are constantly having discussions with each other, and these discussions are not necessarily positive. It's a clash of personalities, it's a clash of expectations, it's a person who is not necessarily fitting into that team for a variety of reasons. In such situations, it's better to understand the root cause, and again, you see that gap in performance. Once you understand the root cause, you can probably redeploy this employee to another team where they will fit much better. You can potentially train them if everything is caused by lack of knowledge, lack of competencies, and that's what's causing tension. Eventually, you can decide that this employee is rather not someone you would like to have on your team going forward because it's creating too many conflicts. And eventually, it could result in a toxic working environment. All this could be identified using technology. Of course, technology cannot tell you what the root cause of a conflict is. It simply tells you you have everything, all prerequisites to face a conflict. It's your time to identify why. Many thanks. I believe that definitely the future is in automation in technology. Again, it shall never be algorithm that is making decisions instead of humans. It's rather advising humans how to make informed hiring decisions.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you for your presentation and your time today. So, as I previously asked our audience to ask questions if they have some on the right side of the screen. So we have a couple of questions. And the number one question which we would like to share with you, or actually ask you in this case, is especially about the technology. Nowadays it is more and more common to use technology in HR processes, and it is not the Stone Age anymore. So most of the companies already have some kind of a tool or software to manage HR processes. But what would you say is the minimum level where a company should already consider some kind of a tool or a service for their HR or applicant tracking management?
I would say if your headcount is more than 30 people and you have high headcount turnover rate due to the nature of the business, let's say it's a seasonal business, or it is a business that is hiring temporary employees, could be agriculture, could be careers. In such cases, you definitely need automation and applicant tracking. It is needed to track if this candidate has applied before. It is needed to track if this candidate has been hired before. So you want these people again. If it is seasonal business, you need them during the high season. If it is tourism, you need them during the summer. And you need to have track of their performance before. You need to know if you want this candidate again, if your customers were happy with them before. Definitely, if it is more than 30 people on board, it's time to think about automating your processes.
Okay, thank you for your answer. But that leads us to the next question. For example, for bigger companies, the implementation process may sometimes be very long and time-consuming. Well, what about the return on investment on the implementation process? Is there a size of a company where they need to be very careful when implementing long applications or softwares or tools?
Enterprises definitely need to consider if certain application is something they could easily integrate with all other software solutions they have in place. If it seamlessly integrates and can exchange data, everything's fine. But if you need to duplicate data, if you need to customize that application in order to address your business needs, you need to reconsider. I have in my practice several cases in which organizations invest millions only 6-7 months down the line to consider that it's better to completely cease that integration because it's not heading into the right direction. The customization eventually means that you cannot rely on the data anymore. You alter that too much. It's something you always need to consider, and the best is to have a solution that is very flexible, you can customize it, and it is seamlessly integrating with all other software solutions you have in place. It will save you time, it will save you money, it will be much easier going forward to maintain it.
And thank you, Lilia. Since 2022 is going to be a challenging year for all of us, saving time and money should be on everyone's agenda. Thank you, Lilia, for your time today. Thank you for your presentation. And if our audience will have any questions, we'll share them with you, and you will have an open possibility to answer them a bit later. Thank you.
Many thanks.
And now let's move on with our event about employee attraction and recruitment, which is kind of a hot topic this year. So the next one, we're going to ask Julien Matisse from Recruity to share a bit of insights on what applicant tracking system trends can we see in the global market at the moment. Julien, are you there?
Yes, I am, Joris.
Hi, nice to see you. Okay. So I'll leave the stage in your hands.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. And I suppose that's perfect. Yeah, the slides are showing. So hi, everyone. A very quick introduction. So my name is Julien. I'm originally from France, as you can maybe hear. And I work for a company called Recruity. And in that company, I built the partnerships team, and that's both the technology partnerships, where we are integrating with tools in the HR tech ecosystem, and also working on what we call solution partnerships, which is with consulting companies or HR experts in general. And the company I work for is called Recruity, which is an applicant tracking system. But I want to reassure you immediately that this presentation is absolutely not a sales pitch. We work with SmartHR as we are a partner of theirs. And the goal is simply here to give you our perspective as a European ATS on what are the trends that we see in general, both from our customers, but also our partners and our prospects that we speak with. So trends around candidate attraction and recruitment trends. And I mentioned that this is from a European ATS perspective because we are headquartered in the Netherlands, where I am speaking to you from in Amsterdam. And that's where half of our company is. And the other half is in Poland, where our chief technical officer and co-founder is from. So we have all the product and engineering teams in Poland. So our company is heavily rooted in Europe. And today we have about, I would say, close to 5,000 customers and globally, but 75% are in Europe. So the feedback we get are heavily driven by European trends. So to start with, I'll break down the presentation in three simple parts. So the first one, I will be quickly speaking about the global trend that we are noticing or all living through at the moment in the world of HR, which is the HR digital transformation, trying to dive in a bit more detailed way on what is going on at the moment. And then we have picked basically three trends to talk about that we see around candidate attraction. So what can you do, practical tips to get candidates in or interested in your company. And then three more trends around recruitment, which is once you have the candidates in, how do you actually convert them into employees? So to get started, so the HR digital transformation is nothing new, but it's probably accelerating, if anything. And that's really where we want to focus on and why we pick it as the underlying global trend currently happening. And to understand it better, we actually look at it, at least here at Recruity, we have quite a few people from the team who come from actually marketing technology. So of course, we are in HR technology, but it's interesting to make parallels with marketing. Why? Because marketing had their digital transformation a little bit earlier. And if you look at what happened there, you can kind of get the pattern for what is currently happening and what will keep on happening in the HR tech space. And the reason why marketing had their transformation earlier is that, generally speaking, marketing is a revenue generating function. They're here to bring leads to companies and so on. And therefore, revenue generating functions had a lot of innovation and a lot of funding went there. And therefore, lots of companies build tools for that. And what you see on the screen here is a famous diagram made by a blog called chiefmartech.com, where they try every year to provide an update of what are all the marketing technology companies in the world, and they build this landscape. The point of this is that you can see that now, this is from 2020, so 2 years ago, but it's like it's explosive. Like, it's all over the place, very hard to comprehend, to understand. You can try to break it down into categories, which are the colors, and then you have subcategories within there, and then within each subcategory you now have hundreds of tools, hundreds of software. It's kind of like having continents and then countries and then cities, and it just keeps increasing all the time. The next slide is about how this landscape evolved over time. So if you go back 10 years ago, or in 2011, when this was done for the first time, the team who made this looked globally around and only came up with like 150 solutions. And within less than 10 years, like today, it's closer to 10,000. But what this shows is that the acceleration is exponential. And if we were, there's no exact science, but if we were to position where HR tech is today, it would be pretty, like, as a loose guess to say, like, we are probably in the middle here, like 2015, 2016. It is accelerating, but it's like, looking ahead, it's going to accelerate even more. The funding is just getting bigger by the day. And so the last point I will mention here is, if we look more specifically now at what happened in the last year in terms of the HR tech, HR digital transformation, specifically looking at funding amounts, the funding of that HR technology as a whole received last year in 2021 for innovation, for new companies and so on, was more than the last 2 years combined. We also see that the demand is increasing. The demand from HR professionals is increasing, because a lot of analysts who look at predictions for the future say that within the next 10 years, essentially, the growth rate of the HR tech market is going to be between 10 and 15% per year, making it a huge market, much bigger than what it was in the last few years, or much bigger than even what analysts thought it would have been in the 2020s. And the whole reason for this is that HR is now becoming a business priority, when in fact, for a long time, it was perceived as a cost center. But now that this supposedly term, like called the Great Resignation or Great Reshuffle, whatever it is actually happening, people are realizing that, well, people are the unique assets that a company have. Without people, you don't have anything. And when people decide to leave or have more options than they ever had in the past, your business cannot function without people. So it is becoming the absolute business priority, which is driving all this acceleration in the digital transformation. So this was for the global trend. Now, going into more details around the trends around candidate attraction. So about what we see our prospects, customers ask us or come to us with, or explain to us when it comes to what they're looking for in terms of getting candidates, attracting candidates to their companies. So the way we're going to do it is I will go through 3 simple trends with trying to at least provide actionable items that we hear every day on the ground, speaking to our customers pretty much. So the first one is, we've seen in the last year and a half, a huge focus around employer branding. So tons, and we specifically at Recruity, I would say we work with companies the size of from 50 employees to a couple thousand employees. That's really our sweet spot. And so employer branding, what it means, I will go to the next slide. What we hear is a lot of companies didn't necessarily have an online presence, and now it's becoming a top of mind priority. So the online presence starts with a career site, of course, which is important, it's like the baseline, but your career site needs to be well crafted. You need to involve your marketing team, your design team to be a part of it, and to ensure consistency, not just on your career site, but also on all the channels you will use to promote your job. So if you're going to promote your jobs on different job sites, on social channels, which we see as a big trend at the moment, make sure that wherever you're going to spread the message of your company, your employer messaging in a way, is the same and consistent. A second point is we start seeing that what companies want to achieve with their employer branding initiatives is trying to become more and more authentic. So in the past, you had a lot of websites where you would just see stock imagery, stock photos or videos on career pages, and that doesn't really convey an authentic message. If you want, it's not like it's pictures you could see everywhere. So we see companies really now focusing on getting employee testimonials on their career pages. Put your employees forward, just have them say what it's like to work at your company, and try to maximize transparency. Transparency not only on the culture that you have in your company, but it can even be simple things like in your job descriptions, you could put the pay range, and that sets you apart already. Candidates today start paying a lot of attention to who is going to be transparent and not try to hide things up front. So authenticity and transparency is a real massive trend in the whole topic of employer branding. And finally, we seem to notice from our customers that onboarding is having a critical importance nowadays, and the job posts or job offers that perform really well tend to have a very clear description of what the initial experience of the candidates will be like. So you make almost in a checklist way, like, what your first 30 days will look like, 90 days, 6 months, but try to really go detailed, because candidates are tired of reading the same old job description everywhere. So convey what makes your company unique through your employer branding messages. That was the first trend. The second one is employee well-being. So here, what we mention is that, or what we really see is that it used to be something nice, and we could have said, like, even 5 years ago, like, yeah, well-being, etc. It's something like, startups promote this, but now we see every single company actually promoting what it's like to work at their company and how they care about their employees. So we really have noticed this shift from a nice to have to a must have. You must explain what you're doing to your audience in terms of employee well-being. So that could be from saying that you would simply conduct check-ins. You will have check-ins done by the people team to know, like, we care about the employees. We want to know what your experience is like. We see more and more ways of doing it via flexibility. So flexibility in the way you work. In the presentation just before, we spoke about remote work. Could be 4-day work weeks, which companies are testing more and more nowadays. In the company I worked at before, we had unlimited holidays, and it never actually created any problems. If anything, it just reinforced trust between the employees and the employer. But try to showcase what your flexibility is, because this is attractive to candidates. And finally, the little quote we put on here, it's interesting to notice that in the last year, a third of the younger generations just felt they had to take time off at some point for pure stress or anxiety related matters. And therefore, we see this big shift around the stigma of mental health, and it's almost becoming like the employers have to take this responsibility, which for a long time was not spoken about. And the employers who can showcase that somehow they put this at the core of their values will be more attractive to candidates. The last trend around candidate attraction is employee referral. So you could wonder, like, this is something that has always happened, like, why is it particularly a trend? The reason for this is, interestingly, G2 Crowd, which is a software which compares different technologies, ran this interesting survey last year and found that basically half of the companies say that their top hires come from referrals. So this is something that was known for a long time because, of course, someone who feels good in a job will not hesitate to refer their network to their company, and therefore it just helps with the whole culture of trust. You will onboard people easier because they already know someone. They come in confidently, knowing that if my connection or friend or whoever enjoys working here, there's higher chances that I'm going to enjoy working here. But the thing is, employee referrals were not really something, like, were not a tactic. They were not a strategy until recently. And because now it's getting so much harder to attract people, to attract candidates to your company, we see that technology first is being built around it. Like, I get contacted every month by a new employee referral software who wants to integrate with us. So you have technology tools built just for this. And you have a lot of companies now who say, okay, we're going to reward our own employees if they refer their network to jobs. It could be either through cash or through other prizes, but organize contests to say, okay, can you bring your connections in the company, because it's an additional tool that you can use to try to get to immediate network that your employers have. The last part of the presentation will be, now that we spoke about a few trends around candidate attraction, now it's more purely recruitment, so getting employees, trends around recruitment itself. The first one that we see happening is the shift from, like, you could say, classic recruitment to much more strategic recruitment. And what we mean by strategic recruitment is just rethinking the way that you hire, that you recruit. As an introduction to this trend, it's interesting to see that this is coming from LinkedIn, but LinkedIn ran this survey like between, you could see June 2020, June 2021. And during that time, the number of jobs on LinkedIn for recruiter jobs has done ×7 globally. And this is crazy. But what this really means, it's that if the number of recruiter jobs has gone through the roof, it's that companies struggle to hire, struggle to attract talent, but also struggle to be to recruit the candidates that they have. So the whole idea here is, like, what can you be doing to rethink the traditional recruitment process? So a lot of companies now, especially customers that we have who tell us, they try to basically provide a much more clear career path or career opportunities to the people who are inside their company, first of all. So if you have someone who spent 3 years, I don't know, in sales, but at one point they get bored, they know everything about your company. So why would you actually want to let them leave when they have so much knowledge? Provide them maybe with opportunities to join other teams. So look internally, first of all, revisiting previous candidates who weren't hired, who some call the silver medalists, who were good, but ultimately were not the hired ones. Social media, as we said before, is one that's really increasing in terms of we see more and more companies just going to social media to try to hire, or partnering with universities, which is something that used to be only for the big companies, but now we see smaller companies going there. The second trend is the shift to collaborative hiring. So here, as everyone has heard, we hear that basically many times recruitment is broken and so on. So we see that a lot of the companies who come to us, and that's an interesting part of the previous presentation, companies often come to purchase a tool, but the deeper thing they want is actually to reinvent their hiring process. They want to rethink the way they hire. And a tool is just the beginning of the journey. The trend we are noticing is everyone wants to shorten their interview process and provide a better candidate experience. And the way to achieve this, because everyone wants to achieve these goals, is just to start understanding everyone in the company is a recruiter, not just the recruiters. The recruiters are a facilitator, but everyone needs to have training on how do we hire. So that's something, for example, we do in the company. We all have trainings on how do you become a recruiter, not just as a hiring manager, because candidates want to speak not just to the person who will be their manager or not just to the recruiter. They're also interested in speaking with who will be my teammates. Can I get a feel for who they will be like, or even people in other teams sometimes, just to have this more open conversation of, well, from peer to peer, tell me like, what is it like really to work in this company? And the more you do this, the more you create a climate of confidence, but also you split responsibilities and create less stress for the recruiters. And finally, the new needs that we perceive in recruitment tools. So that's, again, not absolutely us. That's the last part of the presentation. It's not about us putting forward what our tool does, not at all. It's more like we compile, when people come to us, what are the main reasons they're looking for tools, whether they choose us or someone else. And the top 3 reasons we have for all of last year, the reasons companies want to actually look for tools is 1, we need a better tool for multi-posting, the ability from one central place to post our job offers to a maximum amount of channels, whether they're job boards or social channels. Secondly, automations. So many people would say AI. The way we look at AI is more like the point of AI is to help you do less manual tasks, and that's through more automations. So what can your tool do to save me some time? That's all it's about. Is there something smart I can do in it so that I don't have to send the same email 10 times a day? I want to spend more time recruiting, less time entering administrative stuff on the computer. That's things that we hear every day. And finally, the last one, which was also touched upon in the previous presentation, is around integrations. And that brings me back to the very first slide where we see the whole landscape exploding. New HR tech companies are being created every day. And therefore, the customers we have, the companies, like everyone uses different tools now. However, the one thing that everyone wants to achieve is to connect all these tools together. Otherwise, you lose the point of actually using technology. So that's it for my presentation and the trends that we see at Recruity.
Thank you, Julian, for such a wide presentation. I believe you covered most of the topics about AES and digitalization, and most certainly trends were one of the main topics there. So we still have a couple of questions before we let you go. Using the situation when we have you live together with us, I encourage our audience to ask any question you have at the moment at the right corner of your screen in the discussion panel. But meanwhile, Julian, maybe you could share some personal, like from your company standpoint, information about the process of implementation. This is one of the hot topics concerning digitalization in HR in general. Like, how time-consuming is the adoption process? Does it take a month or 2 or half a year? Like, what should be the expectations of a company who just started to digitalize their processes?
Yep, that's a good question. I would say it really depends on the type of company that you are, because the type of company that you are will define the type of tool you should be using. So we, as I said, we are a tool who focuses on small and medium-sized companies, not on the big ones. When we say big, it's like not companies with, over 10,000 employees. We are not the right tool for this. The reason for this is the recruitment process that you have depends a lot of the size of company that you are in. And for us, our philosophy as a product, when the tool was created in 2015, was to make a tool which is self-service. So if you go on our website, you can get started immediately on the tool, have a free trial, and you see everything. You can do everything yourself. And we have an online video-based academy, which takes you to the different parts of the product and shows you this is to do this is how you can use it. We put dummy data in the free trial so that you can see with fake candidates how it looks like and so on. So our approach is ultimately, if you want to do it yourself, you should be able to do it yourself. Now, that works really well for tech-savvy companies. And of course, you have lots of companies who want some more hand-holding or more counseling in the process. And that's why we have partners like SmartHR, for example. And I would say, because we focus mainly on small and medium-sized companies, the implementation, like truly go live and seeing like how can I say, value from the tool, it's a matter of 2 to 4 weeks. But then again, it's because we cater to small and medium-sized businesses. Yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you, Julien. One more question before I let you go. Hope you don't mind to stay a bit longer with us.
No.
So, as far as AES systems go, there are many questions from our audience. What should be the first step? Actually, do we need to have a database of our previous records to implement our next steps, or maybe you could share like what are the first steps to start recruitment digitalization?
Yeah, of course, if you have a candidate database already and you want to migrate it, like all tools offer possibilities. So that's absolutely not a problem. I think what really makes the whole process much easier, whatever tool you go for, it's to really think about what is the process, the recruitment process we want to establish in the company. What will help us as a vendor or anyone is if you are able to come and say, this is how we hire. For example, we decide that we have a 4-step process, or in that team, they have a 3-step process. In marketing and in sales, they have a process like that. And you come in, but that you have mapped out in a visual way, if possible, or in a spreadsheet or whatever. But map out what you want your process to be. And then it can help to really make the whole journey of implementing your software super quick. What usually will take time is companies who will come and say, all right, like, well, show us the value. And the thing is, the tool is meant to be flexible so that it reflects your processes, your ways of working. So try to really do the homework of writing down your ways of working in a clear way, so that any tool you would like to go for can then implement them really fast.
Awesome. Thank you, Julien. And thank you. I'm going to say thank you for today's presentation and your time today. Merci beaucoup, Julien. And I'll see you in some of our next events, right?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot, Juris. Have a good
Right.
rest
Bye,
of the day.
Julien.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let's move on. We have a packed event today, so there's no time to spare. Hope you have your coffee and tea with you because we're moving on really fast. We're a bit over half of our event, but we have still some excellent speakers to cover topics about recruitment and employee attraction. And the next topic, as you most probably know, most of the companies think that they are the best employers, and some of them actually are the best ones, but some of them aren't. So to cover this topic a bit more, we have our next speaker, Raimonda Jurgelaitite. I hope I didn't chop it, Raimonda, and she is a country manager from Alliance for Recruitment in Latvia. Hi, Raimonda. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Juris.
Great. Could you turn on the microphone a bit louder, maybe?
I can try. I'm not sure whether it's working.
Should be fine. Should be fine. All right, Raimonda, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing my slides. So I'm not seeing you guys out there online, but I'm very happy being in this conference. And as you just already introduced the topic, yes, we are not the best employer in the market. And I say we, not you, not us only. We all sometimes tend to think that we are the most beautiful princess out there to choose for the candidates. And this idea, this thought is in everyone's mind, probably, in hiring managers, in HRs, recruiters. With this thought in our minds, we tend to think, when starting recruiting, we tend to think that there should be a queue behind closed office door of candidates waiting to be interviewed. Unfortunately, this is the bubble that we sometimes choose to live in, and I invite us all to get out of it, because in most of the cases, this is not true, and we can blame the times we live in. We can run another marketing campaign to invite more people to apply for the position. But today I want to share what we can do in order to, first of all, get rid of the thought, and secondly, start acting. So before any delay, let's go into the situation that we live in. So every company is planning to become a unicorn, especially the startups who are starting their operations. Yes, we live in the time of the new year, when people tend to be more open to change the employer. When they actually get your offer, they have several more on the table to choose from. And yes, the Great Resignation, which started last year, is not getting away, at least not yet. And we have to be aware of the environment that we start recruitment. So, in order to actually do recruitment well and get the line of the candidates, the queue of the candidates behind closed office door, what we need to start with is understanding the market itself in which we're going to be hunting. So what is the market size? What is the actual number of candidates that you will be contacting? And I'm saying the number, because big, small, average is not the size. We need to know the actual number. Competitors, we need to be aware how much they offer, how beautiful they are, what are their benefits, basically the job content, tech stack, whatever that is to know about our competitors before going into the market, before contacting the first candidate. We have to be aware of them. And knowing all these things, you can first act internally, and then make some kind of adjustments in terms of, increasing maybe salary, lowering the requirements, whatever that is. But when you have the knowledge of the market, you can act upon it. Right. So we know the market, but we actually need to evaluate the position contact. When we go into the market, let's be aware of what we are actually asking from the candidates. And I love this post from LinkedIn. Yes, we still, as recruitment consultants, we still to this day encounter these type of positions or hiring managers with whom we work, that they require, I might say the unicorn sometimes, the whole IT unit in one person. So with this illustration, I want to invite all of you, before going into that market that you just got aware of, be very realistic and down to earth what you are about to require from the candidates. Then moving on, I'm inviting, before going into the market, I'm inviting you to think about the team structure that you want to build and you want to invite the candidate to join in. And I draw the comparison of two different teams. And some of you might still argue with me that B team with two motivated and super smart senior employees are somehow better than a team of very different and very different and very good in their areas and benefiting a lot to the team itself for different members. So our suggestion is always to look for the balance and evaluate very critically what the actual team composition is needed for you and what works best for you in very particular case. Right. So then when we are aware of what we're going to be looking for in the market, in what kind of team we're going to be inviting the person, then we have to be aware what we're going to be offering to the person. And yes, we all tend to see the job ads stating big projects, international team, big impact, career opportunities. And I suggest dropping that. Why? Because this does not say anything. Be more specific. In your job ad or in the interview when you invite candidate to talk to you, so tell what is that impact that the person is going to make worldwide, company-wise, whatever that is, be more specific. International team. So with what kind of people the person will collaborate, what kind of career opportunities, exactly what is the path that the person will be going. And of course, yes, be realistic, be specific, and don't overpromise. So it's not that is in this meme. So actually don't overpromise the candidates what they could expect when they join you, so you do not experience the need of replacement. A little bit more of a statistics, right? So at Alliance for Recruitment, we are the biggest agency in the market. And in the market, and I mean Baltics, right? So there are 70 of us today. And per year, we contact more than 30,000 white-collar workers. So here are some statistics. What it takes to employ one person, how many candidates you need to contact in order to employ one person. And by you, I mean a recruiter, a hiring manager, whoever is working in the recruitment process. So as we see, very little part of the table or very little part of all the functional expertise listed in on the screen is comparatively easy to hire. Not so many contacts need to be made in order to employ the person. And as you might see in the comparison, this trend that it's getting harder and harder. You need more and more people to contact, and it takes more time with each and every year to employ the person. This trend is here for some time, and as we expect, it's just gonna be more and more intensive, more and more blood in the fight for the talents. So that's that. So now we are aware of what it takes to hire that one person. So we are ready to grind, to make all those contacts necessary. But we have to also plan the time. And yes, sometimes hiring managers come to us or their internal recruitment consultants saying, well, I needed a person yesterday. So we have to actually set the expectations right and to draw this timeline, which is on my screen, because it doesn't happen overnight. So let's say if we started the position at the very beginning of this year, we can expect the person to be hired only sometime in April. So please be realistic with yourself, with your hiring managers, and with your candidates as well. In terms of being realistic, also keep in mind that not always everything goes very smoothly. Yes, you went through the candidate, with the candidate, through the process, through all the stages possible, and here we are just 1 month away from the placement, and the offer is issued, offer is rejected. And this trend is nothing new. In some areas, the rejection ratio is, well, very, very high, actually. So whenever you go, whenever you know what you need to hire, please be prepared to be rejected. And with that thought in mind, I want to invite you to think about the feedback. So whenever there is any stage of the recruitment process, and I mean any, whatever it is after the phone screen call, if it's the first interview, the technical task, the second interview, the offer stage when you were rejected, whatever that is, don't forget to keep the contact with your candidates. Previously, Julian very well recommended to staying in touch with your previous candidates, right? So with this, I want also encourage us all to be responsive to those who already dedicated some time and attention for you. And I'm not talking about feedback. You know, there are some times when we hear hiring managers rejecting candidates, you were not technical enough, or I did not see sparkle in the eye. Some kind of motivation was lacking. And that's why, let's say, we reject after the first or the second interview. So let's not be that kind of an example. Be more respectful and be more precise. As it's written in the description of the feedback, let's create the value for the candidates who already dedicated time for us. So feedback, to our understanding, should be very extensive, very concrete, personalized, set directly to the person as the explanation why the person is not moving forward, what the person could improve in order to be considered again for the position. Because yes, those people tend to come back if they felt right during the recruitment process, if they felt welcomed and wanted. They tend to go, improve, read the books, learn technologies, come back to you, and sometimes, yeah, apply again, or say yes, I'm willing to talk with that company again. So please, I invite us all to be more value creating for our candidates. So when we went through the recruitment process, and still sometimes we tend to lag the candidates to interview, we are not able to sell very well our positions out there in the market to the candidates we contact. So I suggest doing some work, taking some actions, even though you are not hiring constantly. And what I have in mind is taking care of your employer brand in social media. So I put some examples which I have just recently saw in my LinkedIn feed. So tell the world how awesome you are as a team, as an employer, as a hiring manager. And not only that, the celebrations or some kind of achievements, but also I very much encourage, if out there in the audience are some hiring managers or recruiters, I would say that every hiring manager is the best PR guru in the company for the certain position that he or she is hiring. So when the recruitment consultant is posting is doing a post, let's say in LinkedIn, hey, we are hiring a Java developer, don't be lazy, reshare, comment, do a post yourself. So every little bit helps in attracting employees now and in the future. If there is an amazing stack that you're working, make a post about it. If there's the project that you just recently closed and you are super proud about it, show the world. So everything that you do, show the world and invite people to see you as a hiring manager first, your company, your team, and then you will not need probably to ask your recruiter, so where are my candidates, right? So be the partner for your recruiter if you are a hiring manager, and I think every recruiter will thank such hiring manager. So to wrap up shortly what I've just told. So let's not be the ones who say, good enough candidate, yes, kind of fit for the position, but we need to compare with other candidates. And actually, we always suggest comparing not the candidates that you have just saw, compare with the people who are already in your team. Yes, we get some kind of comments from hiring managers. There were no sparkles in the eyes. It's very natural these days for people to be not fully engaged or not fully motivated in the first interview, let's say. Throughout the interview process, candidates get to know your company, and then the sparkle appears. So I always think that, it's hiring managers and recruiters' job to enlight that sparkle in candidates' eyes through selling, telling concrete things about the position, about the expectations, and in order to have that offer accepted. Yes, don't be the ones who tell 2 weeks we need to think about it. No one has 2 weeks anymore. Be the one, make the decision the same day. Communicate to candidate. If not on the same day, then the next day for sure. When doing the recruitment projects with our clients, we say 48 hours, not more. We do not have more time because the candidate will be gone. Then when it comes to feedback, I want to repeat myself to be very concrete about it. What kind of technical competencies the person lacked, not just that it was not good enough. What kind of personality traits might not be fitting for the certain team, and then invite the person to participate in the recruitment process to another team if there is an open vacancy. So please be more feedback given, and I might say feedback asking, because candidates are also a very good source of the feedback about our recruitment process. So take a minute to actually ask that question at the very end of the first interview. How was it? How do you feel after the first interview? Etc. And also, when we reject candidates and provide them feedback, as how did he or she felt during the interview process. And yes, most of all, please stop believing that you are the most beautiful princess out there. You might be, might not, but it's better to be humble, because we never know when amazing, great employer enters the market and might be a more beautiful princess than you are today. So let's be humble on that. And instead of these not so positive actions, let's focus on what we can do to talk about that seniority, to talk about the salary throughout the process all the time, not only when the offer is issued. Be precise on the task, what the person will be doing. Show personal interest, that you personally need the candidate in the team throughout the process, not only when the offer is issued. When the offer is issued, there are no questions asked. But to call the candidate and show that personal interest. Understanding the market, as I told at the very beginning, the feedback, I cannot emphasize more how valuable that is for the candidate and for you as an employer. Because the recruitment process that you lead actually shows your company's culture. So don't miss the chance to involve your hiring managers from the very beginning, from the briefing until the placement, and even when the hiring manager is not hiring, enable them or yourself, if you're a hiring manager, to be more visible in social media in order to make your employer brand more recognizable. So that was it. When life gives us a lemon, which in these days is candidate-driven market, I think we must eat it all. Not make a lemonade, unfortunately, but eat it all while making effort, taking actions. I hope these actions that I shared today enlighten the sparkle in the brain. I hope that I gave food for thought for you, some actionable items to act upon, if not today, then tomorrow.
Thank you, Raimonda, for such a wide presentation and a lot of information that we need to process, I believe. So there are a couple of questions, however, while you were presenting. So I'm like kind of entitled and forced to ask you some questions before I let you go. I hope that's okay with you.
Oh, yes, for sure.
All right. So the first one was actually after you mentioned hiring on the same day, making the decision at the same day. As far as I understand, it is very dynamic market at the moment. So it's kind of in the company's best interest to make a decision fast as possible. But the question is, how fast should the recruitment process be? Like, what is, by your experience, the average time from this job ad till hired employee?
It really depends, and there is no one concrete answer. That it varies depending on the company as well as the position. I think that the best way to approach this is to actually critically look at the recruitment process that you are willing to invite candidates to participate in. I know there are companies who say yes, one interview, and at the very end of that one and first and the only interview, we are ready to issue an offer for the person if we like he or she. So there are this type of companies, and there are companies who say 4 panel interviews and not less, because this is how we make a decision whether to hire the person or not. So I cannot say that either of these two extremes are good or bad, but I would say somewhere in between is the process that we always suggest to our clients. So First of all, when they partner with us, we do the first part, the recruitment agency side, when we actually contact people, pre-screen on the phone, then invite for proper interview. And then when we talk about the interview process on the client side, we recommend, so first interview, then if there is a need, if the position is technical and you really need to check the technical aspects, technical abilities of the person, then yes, technical home task, which is definitely not longer than, I would say, 2 hours or 4 as maximum if you really need that. And then the second interview as a feedback giving discussion about how the task was prepared. And then the offer and the risk management part. But actually, and yet I think that always the technical task in between the interviews could also be covered during the interviews. Let's say at the end of the first one, or you can do the second interview, more technical discussion based with the questions that you otherwise ask in the home task to do. So 3 stages, 2 stages, I would say is the optimal decision.
Okay. Well, we're going to ask you some couple of questions more, but since we have to move on to our next speaker in order to take this event and finish on time, we're going to ask you to answer them while writing a bit later. Anyway,
sure.
I will say big thanks to you, Raimonda, for being able to come to our event and share a bit of a knowledge on the insights of what are the recruitment trends process-wise. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. And out there, people, if you are willing to ask something, you can find me on LinkedIn easily, connect, and let's chat there.
Absolutely. Just search for Alliance of Recruitment Country Manager in Latvia, Raimonda Jurgelaitīte, and connect on LinkedIn, ask a question directly. That's actually what I'm endorsing you for. All right, let's move on to our last but not least speaker of today, Patrick Dupont, who will cover more on the topic why your employees actually are the best recruiters there are. And this is something that today we have heard in a couple of presentations, that in the recruitment process, there's actually nothing better than a reference from your own employees. Is that right, Patrick?
That is absolutely correct, Juris. And also thank you for having me. I'm the last one, but we'll make it a bit more. Not more, because it was probably already very active, but we can make it as interactive as possible.
All right, Patrick, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Juris. All right, welcome to this session. I'm Patrick. I'll already immediately go to the next slide, but basically what I'm going to talk about is why the co-workers are your most efficient recruiters. So in the next 20 minutes, I will share some insights, and I will also end with a very practical case. So my name is Patrick Dupont. I'm CEO of Social Cedar. We are still a Belgian company, but we have organizations worldwide using us, and most of the organizations are also using us for very efficient and easy recruitment. We are existing about 8 years right now. And at this moment, we have about 250 customers worldwide. And I'm also very proud that we have SmartHR as our partner. So what we do, but this is just the context of who I am, is we are playing a really important role in companies for brand building. If organizations want to build their brand, their image. Social selling is a bit separate. I'm not going to discuss this today, but specifically also on employer branding and easy recruitment. The easy recruitment part, that is obviously the topic of today. We're a combination of a methodology and a SaaS platform. Again, this is not the purpose to look at the software, but this is really to share all the insights that we have over the last 8 years, and there's lots of things that have changed, obviously. So again, let me just start by some very logical things that probably everybody knows, but yesterday we had the employee and we had the organization, and the organization paid the employee to get to work. And there was not so much difference between, there was no interaction, not so much interaction about values. In my case, I went to go working for a bank. I didn't know what the values were. I think that there wasn't even a possibility to know what values the bank had. I just knew that that was going to be my job, and I got paid so much, and I had so many holidays basically, and that was it. Obviously, these days, everything changes, and it's changing dramatically also over the last 2 years since COVID, because a company obviously needs to have a mutual engagement with your coworkers. It's also about engagement. People, they come and work for a company, but when the company has values, that's what they are. Obviously, you need to have the salary as well, but they are the values. The vision is becoming more and more important, specifically also for the young people, but also for the older people. So that's one thing. A company needs to have values, otherwise people don't stay, or people don't really are attracted to the company. Next thing is that a company, and this is something that we see is really changing very quickly, is that lots of companies are also busy with what we say giving back to society. So a company doesn't only need to be a good employer, but a company also need to be an organization that gives back to society. And these values also should be shared, because if you don't share these values, it's very nice, but there's not so much impact. But how do you do this? And this is mostly the question: how do you do this as a company, even if you have the values? How do you share them? And how do you make sure that the possible candidates know who you are as a company? So we all know, that's why we are here, that there's a war for talent. Great Resignation is not new. I see it every day again, that there's two things happening. There's a lower engagement, meaning that there's more people looking for another job, and on the other hand, there's so many demand for the right people in often the same company. So there's the statement is the current situation. They stayed in their role 175 days longer. There's not so much happening because there's so much remote work, makes it a bit more boring, and engagement goes down. So what you need to do as a company is you have to stand out. You have to be able to reach the candidates, and you can do it by spending a lot of money, or you can do it by being relevant. And I think, and this is what we've learned, is that being relevant makes the biggest difference. But how do you do this? You cannot, it's not very easy to create relevancy through publicity. It's just publicity. Is it the truth? You don't know. Nobody knows. But authenticity creates relevancy. That's what we see also in our platform. As long as the content and the message is authentic, and then we can question mark about authenticity, but I can explain about this, you will create lots of relevancy, also on social media. The former speaker was also saying about you have to be very visible on social media. Yes, you have to be very visible on social media if you want to reach your candidates. So what we believe is that the story of a company is best told by the people that know the company best, and that's the employees. And meaning and you can go further. The best recruiters in your company are probably your employees, because everybody has a network, and that's what I'm going to show right now. If you just if you use the network. So some interesting facts that we gathered and that are also on Google. Obviously today almost everybody is using social media every day. Also the employees, they use social media. Before COVID, we still had some companies that didn't allow their co-workers to use social media, which is very stupid, because they have social media all the time. They have their mobile, they can always be on social media. What we see right now is that also because of remote working, most of the people, they have access on social media. And That's one thing. The second thing is, if a person shares a message, I'm looking for a colleague, the frequency, the reshare, it's going to be reshared, 24 times more, meaning that the content, the post, will last much longer than when a company shares it. That's the second observation. It gets also 8 times more engagement. Engagement meaning I like it and comments. Why? It comes from a person and it doesn't come from a company. So that's the third observation. And it converts. Converting in our case could be leading to a hire. So it converts 7 times more than when a company uses the same message or sends out the same message. I'm talking about social media, on social media. So how efficient is this? This is really efficient. It's always been like this, but it's just getting more and more important right now. And they have a 37% higher retention rate. What does that mean? That means that if somebody joins your company because it went through word of mouth, there's a higher chance that they stay on board. It's the same for customers that choose a certain organization because it's being recommended. It's the same. It's just the same process. Why? Because there's a human link behind it, and the human link makes it even stronger. And perhaps the most important thing is we're all humans all over the world, and globally, worldwide, 92% of people trust other people more than every other message that you can have. I'm talking about publicity, posts, whatever. So it's which is a bit logical. I would even suggest it's 100%, but it's apparently 92%. So it's still a very, very high figure. Now, this makes it quite clear what an important role your co-workers could have in the hiring process of people. This is out of 150,000 campaigns that we've sent. If a company, let's suppose that you're a company with 1,000 followers on Facebook, and you have something which is an organic reach. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but you post something, then there will be around 30 people that see your message. For the rest, you will have to pay. That's how social media works. Suppose you have 10 ambassadors, only 10 ambassadors. You ask them to post the same post, there will be 4,000 people that you will reach, which is huge. Why? Because what we've seen worldwide is if a person shares, normally in our case, they share on 1.5 different platforms. So they share on LinkedIn from time to time, on Facebook, they can Twitter it. There's Instagram, there's WhatsApp. On average, they will reach, they will reach about 400 people. So what a big difference that is. So again, you don't need to be a very big international company to install such a programs. Even with a couple of ambassadors, it will already make a big, big difference. But what is the biggest problem in most of the companies, and this is just something that I would like to point out, is that in big and even smaller companies, the smaller the company, most of the times the more engagement you have. But in most of the companies, when I ask them how many people share spontaneously messages or posts of your company, like recruitment posts, most of the times I get an answer of, well, it will be around 1% or even less. The bigger the company, the less people are going to share. Why? They don't know how to do this. They're a bit afraid because they don't know whether they say the right thing. They don't have time. So there's so many reasons why people don't share. So what we've seen is it's really important that people share, and they can play a really important role in the hiring process, but very few people do it. That's the problem that most of the companies have. So what we try to do is to create at least 25% of engaged people. Engaged meaning I'm going to share from time to time something. And now in this case, we're talking about the HR perspective. I'm going to share company news leading to hirings, because that's basically what I'm talking about. It's not only vacancies that you have to share. You also have to share, obviously, other stories of your company, so that your company creates the awareness that there's a culture. And once that people know this, then from time to time you ask them to share also your vacancies, and you will see what a huge result that will be. So that's why, how do we do this? We use next to the platform, but this is not a technological session, but next to the platform there's some steps everybody needs to take, or should take, at least that's our experience, in order to create at least the 25% of engaged people. And that's what we create is basically a canvas that you show, that I'm showing right now, where in your company, obviously, you need to define the goals. Like, why do I do this? Why do I install a program like this? And then we go to the next point. Really important is the why. I think most of you know, or some people know Simon Sinek, the why. When you ask your co-workers to become an ambassador and become an active recruiter, in your case, obviously you need to explain the why. Without this, it's going to the engagement will be very low. On top, you have something which you see recruitment. Very important is, if you ask people to join a program like this, think about segmentation, because what is happening is that somebody in development probably in this network will have lots of other developers. Somebody in accountant will have probably in their network more accounting people than developers. So if you have open positions, you can send it to the right people. So segmentation is really important. Don't send it to everybody, because you will burn at a certain moment your coworkers. You don't want to burn them. You just want to send them the information that is interesting for them. Activate, meaning you do need to have a story next to just open positions. This is what employer branding is all about. Engage is, how are we going to make sure in our company that if people take this active role, how do they stay on board? One thing we've learned is, don't think too much about gamification. You need to think about empowering the whole group. It's empowering the community of your ambassadors, and not only giving an iPad to number one. That does destroy the community spirit. And obviously, you can even put targets on it. You could put a target like, I want to hire 25 people thanks to the engagement of my coworkers. So this is a canvas that we fill in together with our organizations, and we try really to obtain, and we succeed in 95% of the cases. I just have to look at my time, because when I start talking, I'm gone for quite some time. Another thing that we found out is, next to the reach, and the reach is how many people saw the message of your coworker, is how many people really go to the page where your vacancy is. On average, what we see is it's about 10 people. So I'm sharing, I'm looking for, let's suppose that I'm sharing a post, I'm looking for a colleague. There will be normally, on average in Europe, 10 people going back to your website to look at the open position. So for each ambassador, 10 people come effectively to your website, which is, I think, quite huge. And this is just a real story that I would like to share. And this is what I was talking about. This is an example of a B2B company that, next to sharing posts about their culture and their employer brand and their values, once every month, they ask their coworkers once a month to share a post with an open position, or with different open positions in their company. In this case, it was the company. I'm sorry, I cannot, because it's all with privacy, but the company was looking for 200 coworkers, so it's quite huge. They asked their coworkers to share it. There were, at the end, and this is an example of December, so last December, there were at the end about 50 or 49 people that said, I want to share that message. 49 people shared this message. The result was that 2,408 people came back to the website where they explained all the open positions they had. So much more than the 10, meaning that they did a really good job, a very good, authentic post. From the 2,408 people that came to the website, there were 250 people that applied for a job. And out of the 250 people, there were 25 people hired thanks to the efforts of your coworkers, the one post that they shared. So in one day, they had, and it's B2B company, they had 2,408 people. And at the end of the process, 25 people got hired at basically no cost, because the only thing was the engaged coworkers that shared a post. So this is just showing how really big impact it can have. I think you can really have some severe savings, not only savings, but the hiring process will go much faster and easier if you use your coworkers in the process of sharing. This is the last slide before I'm ending my session. We see obviously that there's lots of, in the last couple of years, there's lots of things changing. There's lots of companies. Before we saw quite a lot of big companies that were busy with employer brand in order to create more awareness and in order to have more people coming into the company or having interest in the company. What we see right now is that basically any company, we have companies with 50 coworkers that are really busy with their employer brand because they fail to find the right people and they fail to have a long-term engagement. So you need to work on this. And this is also a phenomenon which is worldwide. We see it in Asia, we see it in America, in South America, even in Africa and in Europe, and also a lot in the Baltics, by the way, because there's quite a lot of things moving in the Baltics. So this is just my presentation out of the experience that we have, why your coworkers are your most efficient recruiters. And I'm also very happy to have questions answered if there's any questions. And thank you very much for your attendees. Thank you.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you once again for a presentation. And I hope that this was once again a reminder about the importance of co-workers in the process of recruitment. I think not all of us, but most of us most probably have considered a job or working in a company based on something that we have seen posted by our friends, or actually got influenced by the good reviews from one or two people that we know that actually work on this company. So I myself can tell you that your colleagues are the best impact on recruitment process if you engage them in the right way. For you as well, Patrick, we have some questions. Not a lot of them we can answer at the moment because we have a time limitation. But one of the most important question, I guess, and it is kind of a good one, if I may say so, is how not to overdo the employee engaging, the colleague engagement in the recruitment process. I believe the question in the basis is, how often should you actually ask to your colleagues to promote your company or to do some kind of a promotional activities?
It's a really good question. I think it's one of the best questions you might have, because frequency is absolutely important and plays an important role to have it strategically in your company. If you want to use it once, then you don't care. But what we see is that most of the companies, they start with 3 to 4 messages a month. So you don't need to create messages every day. Once a week is already good. Sometimes, like what just mentioned, 3 times a month is really good. If you see that you have a high engagement, that people like the content, then you can go faster. But never start. It's like a train. You have to take it step by step. Otherwise, you will burn your ambassador. But the second thing, which is also very important, is creating employer brand, creating awareness, and creating the fact that people are looking at you to come and work for you is also a continuous process. It's something that you have to keep going. It's no use to just do it for 1 month and then you stop and then you need again other people and then you start again. You have to do it. You have to start from scratch. So the frequency has to be quite solid also during July, August, for instance. You can reuse content, there's no problem. But again, so a very good point. Don't overdo it. Don't burn your ambassadors. We advise 3 times a month to start with.
All right. So as far as I understand, that shouldn't be a weekly request, to promote something or to say something good about a company, because that actually makes sense. If I would be asked on a weekly basis, it would most probably lose my interest in
Yeah, and this is why, again, in the beginning of the presentation, the authenticity is so important. It's not, you cannot use them as recruitment publicity channels, because then that's the wrong way to do it. It has to be spontaneously, and nobody wants to really burn their own social media channels neither. So you have to be careful about it, the frequency.
Patrick, I'm going to say thank you for today's time and being able to join in on this event and share a presentation and your knowledge.
With so much pleasure, Juris. And again, I was very happy, and it was a pleasure to be with you. And thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on our next events this year. Well, today's event is over, almost over. So let me switch back to Latvian. Pārslēgties atpakaļ uz latviešu valodu, kā jau minēju, šis mums ir daļai latviešu, daļai angļu valodas pasākums. Ceru, ka informācija, kuru jūs šodien dzirdējāt, jums noderēs jūsu ikdienas darbinieku piesaistes un atlases darbā. Centāmies jums nodrošināt lektorus un zināšanas no, ja tā var teikt, visas pasaules, jo bija gan pārstāvēta Latvija, bija pārstāvēta Lietuva, bija pārstāvēta Beļģija un Nīderlande. Un, protams, visu kopā, to visu mēs pārstāvam no Latvijas. Nu ko, dārgie draugi, dāmas un kungi, aicinu jūs nobalsot, vai pareizāk dot mums ziņu, kā mums šajā seminārā ir gājis, ieteikt, ko mēs varam darīt labāk nākamajos semināros, aizpildot mentimetru aptauju, ko jūs redzat ekrānā apakšā slīd līnijām. Ceru, ka jums šis pasākums patika. Ceru, ka mēs tiksimies tuvākajā laikā jau klātienes pasākumos, uz ko ļoti, ļoti paļaujamies. Tāpēc pagaidām vēl attālināti saku jums tā, lai tuvākajā laikā tiktos ar jums klātienē. Lai veiksmīgs vakars un jaudīgs šis 2022. gads.
Managing a workforce is becoming more and more complex. With Zalaris People Hub, we gather all HR processes in one place. All your workforce data are fully digitized and stored safely in the cloud. Employees can have anytime, anywhere access to view their payslips and report on their time and expenses. Managers can be effective in approving their team's absences, work time, and expenses in just one click. And HR has a global overview of workforce data and analytics for better decision-making and cost control. With one user interface and integration to any global HR solution, Zalaris People Hub is your complete one-stop HR platform to simplify work life for everyone. Just get in touch and we'll help you get started. Zalaris, simplify work life, achieve more.